All right, I've been meaning to do a YouTube video about this for quite some time now. I've had this idea written down. Figured I'd put it into a presentation and whatnot. But I think a lot of people can benefit from this. At least I would have benefited from it in the beginning. I was getting blood work and not really understanding anything, and just referring to what my doctor said. And the doctor says is gold. If he says it's good, it's good. If he says it's bad, it's bad. Yeah, I've learned multiple times that that is not the case at all. So, I mean, this 10-ish, 9-ish slide presentation will clear a lot of things up for you guys and hopefully learn something and add to your knowledge and big database of blood work and what you know, what you don't know, what you might need to know. Yeah, any information is good information. So, do your own research. I'm not your doctor by any means, but I'm going to go through some of the markers that I like to look at with myself and my clients before, during, after a cruise, a blast, a cutting phase, natural, enhanced, all the ins and the outs. So I got a 5-minute timer over here to the side. I'm not sure what's up with this program right now, but um, it might be in 5-minute segments. So bear with me. But yeah, let's get into it. So we'll go through 5-ish blood markers for fat loss, meaning the markers to keep an eye on. If they're out of range, it can affect your progress. You're not going to defy the laws of thermodynamics. But if we're looking for performance and we're looking for the most optimal fat loss, then yeah, we want to keep an eye on blood work and pay attention to those markers. So the 5 markers we'll go over here. Let's see if I can. The 5 markers that matter, I mean, glucose and insulin levels, is fasting glucose and insulin levels mainly. Fuel handling and cravings, definitely, but more on a nutrient partitioning level. So the lower your fasting glucose levels and the lower your fasting insulin levels, means your pancreas is in the best possible state to not only process nutrients but pump out insulin. Let me take that back. It puts your body in a position to process the nutrients you take in rather than store them as excess body fat, if that makes sense. So you will utilize the nutrients and energy you're taking in much better and much more efficiently. So post contest, you'll see a lot of guys, they're wicked lean. They're 5%, 4% body fat. It's almost off of an island. Yeah, any food that goes into their body is much more apt to be put on as muscle tissues. They've probably lost a lot of muscle as it is. Body's in a very, very depleted state, so they call that the rebound phase. I mean, we can get into that too. Thyroid, you usually don't see much issue with thyroid unless you're enhanced and using T3 and whatnot. I mean, Hashimoto's disease is somewhat common, but I have yet to see a thyroid panel that's really messed up. Um, Adrenal fatigue and stress can overstimulate, understimulate. You might overproduce T4, and some guys will crank T3 in the not in the off season, in contest prep, just to drive thyroid output a little bit more and squeeze a little bit more. There's something to be said about growth hormone down regulating it to an extent, but yeah, it's more or less a fat loss drug that's used. So the thyroid is kind of, yeah, I guess these will be in 5-minute segments, but yeah, so the thyroid's more just overall metabolic rate where your stress levels are at, other than cortisol. If these are skewed very bad in one direction or the other, it can be pretty difficult to lose weight, or vice versa, gain weight. Lipids, overall health, HDL, LDL, good and bad. It's kind of straightforward. We'll get into that as well. Your inflammation and liver markers, the less inflammation your body has to deal with and process on a day-to-day basis, the more it can process fat that you're breaking down, because it's also going to break down into toxins. Um, a byproduct of it will be broken down into toxins. Some of it you'll use as energy, but for liver and inflammation, yeah, if the liver's under a lot of stress, then things are just going to slow down overall. It's kind of like if entering the liver is 100%, but exiting the liver is 80%. And over time, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So we want to fix that issue before we put any more stress on the liver. That makes sense. And then, yeah, sex hormones, obviously. Testosterone, estradiol, the whole gambit. We'll get into that as well. SHBG plays somewhat of a role, too. Yeah, so back to... So I can put myself over this guy. What's he got? Sushi? It's probably just chicken. Anyway, yeah, so fasting insulin, glucose levels. If your glucose levels are high, your fasting glucose levels are, you're like, oh, I'm pre-diabetic. But your glucose levels are in range. You're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm not pre-diabetic nor diabetic. But your pancreas is pumping out a bunch of insulin in order to keep you in range and keep you around that 90, 92, 93. So you're like, I'm not close to 100, fine. But the reason we get this is because it rises in response to glucose in order to lower it. And insulin's going to shuttle glucose into the muscle. So the higher your glucose, the more insulin your pancreas has to pump out. If this is high, glucose is 100, 110, and fasting insulin's low, and you haven't eaten anything, then it's just a stress response, cortisol response is what you'll see. So yeah, we get these in conjunction just to make sure that one is the other, not vice versa. Some of this, yeah, more just coaching and suggestions, building meals around it. I mean, just based on what these numbers are. If this is high and this is low, it's a completely different diet situation, vice versa. Obviously, blanket statement, I'll say low carb before bed, or if it is a carb before bed, potato, something that's not fast acting like rice is just going to be in and out and cause you to have a blood sugar crash while you sleep. It's like you're not gonna die if you eat a bunch of rice or a bunch of candy and go to bed, but you could go slightly hypo overnight, which the body will produce stress hormones in response to increased glucose, so you don't die. Um, that's kind of hypoglycemia. Your mood goes to shit. Your headband starts to sweat a little bit. You're a little jittery. It's just adrenaline, cortisol. So that can be a false reading for glucose. But again, that's just eat low-ish carbs around bedtime, last meal of the day. I'd keep most of my carbs pre and post workout. You probably won't have an issue with this. If you do have an issue with this, then yeah, needs to be a few changes. And contrary to popular belief, you can cure diabetes. Yeah, you can cure. You're on 76 IUs of long-acting insulin. You might not believe me, but you can cure your insulin or cure your diabetes. Cure your insulin. It's way too late. Cure your diabetes. You can do it. I've seen it. My coach has done it with the sauna and fasting cardio and just kind of carbohydrate and protein control. The sauna works wonders on the pancreas and overall fasting glucose levels. Just carbohydrate or just glucose control throughout the day, sweating all that toxins. I don't know. There's studies about it, but is some magic going on when it comes to that. I had a buddy of mine that I was helping out, and he's like, "Yeah, it's quite the dose of insulin they got you on." He needed it at the time, so we lowered him. I recommended he lower it a little bit and do some cardio, do some stairs here and there at work. He was hitting the sauna after work for a while, changing up his diet slightly, but not a lot. And he took the same dose of insulin one morning, and he legit was going hypo by noontime. I had no idea what was wrong with him. Never experienced that before in his life. By the grace of God, he had happened to pull into Dunkin' Donuts and got a donut and a coffee, and pulled over to the side of the road and was like starting to go dizzy and start to see stars and stuff. So yeah, that donut saved his life. But that's also a sign that he was on track to lower his insulin dose. So, and now he's on minimal insulin and just before meals and doesn't take metformin anymore. So he's still on insulin, more of a performance and longevity aspect tool for him, but he could get rid of it if he wanted to. And he was taking 40 or 50 IUs, somewhere in that range. And we dropped them a little bit and just kind of continually dropped them. So, yeah, it's a little off topic, but yeah, it's all the fasting insulin glucose. Um, Similar to fasting glucose and fasting insulin levels is your A1C. You can get a Amazon prick test kit if you don't want to go in and get blood work for this. Bless you. Um, but the A1C is cool because it's an average of your glucose levels over the course of 3 months, not your fasting glucose levels, like your entire glucose levels over those 90 days. Um, That's why, like, when we go back here, it's like this can be every day. These are gonna look different, and if you eat and then you don't eat, and then you're stressed and then you're not stressed. These could look crazy, like wildly different day to day. So back to this is a better metric to look at. It'll spot pre-diabetes and stuff, and you don't have to look at insulin levels alongside this one either, because it's simply just a 3 month blood sugar trend. A lot of, I think it might even be an insurance rule now that you have to have an A1C test in order to renew your prescription for insulin here in the US. Uh, don't quote me on that, but yeah, the A1C test is pretty much the medical industry's golden goose when it comes to diabetes. Quite a cool metric. They were able to isolate something. I believe it's in the red blood cell um, that pulses insulin or pulses glucose every 3 months. Fascinating if you think about it. Yeah, so that's pretty much A1C in a nutshell. You can do your own research on this, but a fascinating blood marker, and definitely, I don't know what year they identified this, but I believe it was 21st century. Um, and again, you can buy the kits on Amazon and just blood prick yourself like you would for a glucose monitor, just to get an average, kind of see where you're at. I use this for like just like I said with these two, but to see where you're at based on an insulin sensitivity and how responsive you're going to be to the nutrients you take in. So if we're in a growing phase and somebody's A1C is crazy high, they're not going to put on as much. They just their body's not primed for growth. The insulin's going to be less effective. Everything's less effective because the body's got so much glucose in it already. So yeah, that's A1C. Thyroid, we went over that. I mean, that again is, I'm not a doctor, but pretty straightforward. If it's very out of range, you're probably going to have symptoms. Your lymph nodes here will probably be inflamed. You can kind of feel them sometimes if you're stressed out, whatnot. Um, Yeah, total stimulating or thyroid stimulating hormone is going to be your total output. So, I mean, that's useful, but the free T4 alongside it is, to sum it up, it's like this. You can tell one's good by itself, but you need the other one to tell really what's going on, and vice versa. Um, but yeah, definitely add that to your blood panel if you're getting one, or the doctors will always test your TSH. You can probably request free T4. I mean, they might question why you're having symptoms, or you fucking, I don't know. There's synergistic labs. You can DM me on Instagram if you want to know where I have my guys get blood work, and I can set you up. That's totally out of pocket. No doctor, no big brother. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions, pay for your own blood work, and get it tested. Go into your nearest LabCorp, Quest, whatnot, and draw your blood, boom, bang. No doctors. So that's the best way to go about it. Um, This thyroid, again, like I said too, you'll see it crashed and disrupted in an enhanced environment. Somebody that's pushing not just enhancements, but just pushing the body to an enhanced level, whether it be a natural show or just anything really outside what's natural for the human body. Yeah, lipid panel. We went over this a little bit too. The total triglyceride level, HDL, good cholesterol. We want that high. LDL, bad cholesterol. We don't want that low necessarily, but under 100, 110, it's good. The ratio with this is, so if you have really high HDL, you could have higher LDL and still be okay, because the ratio will be fine. Some people just have higher amounts of cholesterol in their body, and total cholesterol is not the whole picture. But if you have high triglycerides, high total cholesterol, these are all high. Yeah, you probably need to figure out how to metabolize some of that or speed up the metabolism process, and that's where they want to prescribe statins to and all this shit. 90% of the time, it's a fat loss issue, fiber sometimes, but yeah, alcohol content. This is all a fat loss issue. Your your ancestors didn't need statins, bro. It's not fucking genetic. Okay, your mom and your dad are fat. It's like, get over it. Let's wake up to reality here. All right. Yeah, this is good too. C-reactive protein is I mean, it's a non-specific inflammation marker, which is good, but it's often going to be elevated with literally anything. Obesity, you get the flu, you get, well, symptoms from allergies. If you're taking, I don't know, anything in, I mean, you eat a bunch of Skittles, you probably spike your CRP. It's a good metric to get tested. Like, if it's way off the chart, there's a lot of C-reactive proteins around and in the heart that'll be produced around the heart and around organs if you have organ stress. So it's a metric they look at for that reason, but not the entire picture. It's not like the last two where you need one to see the other. They're more just in the class of inflammation in a fat loss context, is why I wanted to put it like this. But liver enzymes, you get your ALT and AST, alkaline aminotransferase, and I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. ALT and AST, but they both are liver enzymes that your liver is going to produce in response to any stress. So anything it needs to break down, metabolize, literally anything, your body's going to use those. What are they called? I think they are. Yeah, they're enzymes. They're going to use those enzymes to break down, and I don't want to say detox the liver because it's not really. Yeah, I guess in a sense it's going to detox the liver, but in essence, the higher those are, so if you have in the hundreds or 200s or 300s, there's a lot of spillover of that enzyme into the bloodstream. There's supposed to be a healthy amount of spillover you'll be able to see in the bloodstream, but the more that liver's spilling over into the bloodstream and you can read it, the more stress the liver's under because it's having to produce way more of that detoxification enzyme than it needs to. And again, the analogy of if you had a bucket and 100% water is going in, but only 80% water is going out, eventually the bucket's going to overflow. And that's how you see fatty liver disease and some sort of illnesses around the liver. I'll say non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Um, yeah, this is pretty much accurate here, but pull labs before a fat loss phase or before a phase of any sort of intensity. And then, yeah, 8 to 12 weeks, you can draw that same exact panel again, $150, $100 panel. Nothing, don't get anything crazy. That way you can continuously draw the same markers and be able to compare data and then make changes if need be. But if you don't need to make changes, don't fix anything that's not broken. You might throw a supplement in and make things worse. There's such thing as taking too much statin and having too low cholesterol. Uh, there's a lot of over-the-counter supplements that work really well. If you overdo them, you can put yourself in a pretty bad situation. So treat a lot of those over-the-counter supplements, especially the ones that I talk about, like medication, because they are powerful. And I wouldn't talk about BCAAs on here. So yeah, I mean, and then patterns. That's obviously if there's anything wildly out of range. For my guys, I'll just have them retest it. Like, chill out, bro. Fucking have a beer. We'll retest it in a couple of weeks. See where you're at. Take it easy. That I don't agree with the hypochondriac stressing over each and every blood marker that could be off. And oh my God, it's like if we're gonna indulge and or go down the path of fitness and enhancements, bodybuilding, what have you, then something's due to be out of range here or there. And again, that's why we get blood work to see it, treat it. There's been cases of guys that have had CRPs through the roof I've heard of, and it's like they're doing next day heart surgery. And that blood panel and that one test, they decided, hey, I'll add that to my cart and check out. It saved their life within 48 hours. But if you get symptoms alongside certain markers, then yeah, I mean, I'll go to urgent care, check out with your doctor. You're always better off getting checked out than worrying for weeks on end. But if you feel fine and it's just a number on paper, I wouldn't freak out. There's a lot of false testings that can happen. That's why we retest. Um, what marker did I had a marker that was completely out of range. It wasn't anything problematic. It's just one of those like pointless markers you get. One of the just add-ons. Either way, in the next panel it was completely fine. So it's just a blatant lab mistake. Nobody's perfect at the end of the day. I mean, that's kind of what we went over, the checklist of what you should focus on top of your basic metabolic panel, your basics, just your basic lipid panel too. You can go more in depth and get the ApoB or get the Apo. I think it'll be what's the other one? Gamma GTs. You can check if you really want to go in depth on your liver. There's homocysteine alongside CRP for inflammation for just a more in-depth look. But some of those markers are big money. But yeah, I mean, these are the basics. If you want to keep blaming genetics, then start here and fix this. These are all in check, then it's not your genetics, bro. You're not doing what you think you're doing. If you're in 1,000 calorie a day deficit, you do the math. 1,000 times 7, 7,000, 3,500 calories and a pound of fat times two. 7,000 calories, 2 pounds of fat. So you should be losing 2 pounds a week. In a month, you should be 8 pounds down. 2 months, you should lose 16 pounds. You see, so if you were actually, and again, I think if these numbers were all fucking skewed and you were in 1,000 calorie a day deficit, you're still going to lose that weight from somewhere. Might even lose more because amino acid breakdown from muscle tissue. But that's kind of a side tangent. Check these out and keep an eye on them. Hopefully, this helped you. I don't know. Just add to your knowledge of all things fitness, blood work, supplements. And at the end of the day, I mean, the goal is a better plan, but like the blood work will give you context. It'll give you a little, I don't know, personalization structure. You can start to compare it from what you did previously, what you're doing now, your training structure. If you're enhanced, it's a whole different game. What you were taking, what you were eating, how you were recovering. Yeah, and so either side of the fitness industry, powerlifting, bodybuilding, natural, enhanced, I think blood work and all these metrics can benefit simply by just continuing to monitor them and see. Like in my notes app in my phone, not my notes app, my camera roll app, I have an album of all the blood work I've ever gotten. It's like 60 pages worth of just blood work. So I can go back 6 years ago and be like, oh, this is what I was at to start, and I'm a lot worse now. And I can kind of see like trends too. It's like, all right, well, my kidney health started to decline, so I took care of that. Now it's up back. Now everything's on the up and up. So you can see, especially for pre-diabetic, you can quite literally see, oh, you're on a straight path to diabetes if we don't change something up, or if that makes any sense. So to monitor them is, I think, the knowledge is power. In 2026, we have a lot of tools at our disposal to leverage and benefit from. I don't think we should forego any of it. But again, I hope all this helped. And if you have any other questions on this, you need any other advice or guidelines, anything, DM me on Instagram.